well, and I told her, I remember I said, I have bigger fish to fry. And she said to me, well, your school's a pretty big fish. And that sometimes when big fish are far away, little fish that are closer look bigger. The sole purpose of suffering really is to teach us and to purify us and to refine our approach to life. And life, man, includes personal and business.
Welcome to the Biz Life Podcast. I am Donnie Bedore, your host. We're here to talk about the business life, not the busy life. So today I have a sushi-sized episode, or like my guest would like to say, it's going to be awesome. Okay.
The nice one.
The nice one. This is going to be the nice one. So I actually, after reviewing, some of the stuff that we talked about, I was like, why didn't I do this one first? This is such a good episode. I really want to dive into it and talk about it. Hey, please stay tuned. Check it out. You're going to love it. All right. So my guest today is Orlando Waugh, and I know him as Master Waugh. He's my jiu-jitsu instructor, my pull instructor, a mentor, a brother from another mother.
Amen.
Business partner. We do a lot of life together.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming on the Biz Life.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
Honored to have an opportunity to converse with you and your audience.
Yeah. So the episodes are really dedicated to the small business owner, someone that's, either just starting out or been in business for a while. I just try to find the most inspiring, insightful people and bring them on and tell their story. And hopefully we can give them some tips and tricks to plug and play, into their business, and move the needle a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Because don't we all need that?
Everybody needs it, man.
Right.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
That's right. So let's do this. I know you, for many, many years of our lives converging together, but our audience doesn't. So why don't we tell a little bit about yourself? Maybe, what do you do for business, your family, stuff like that? Yeah, just.
Okay. So, my name is Orlando, obviously. I was born in Columbus, Ohio, and in 1995, I moved to Texas.
Okay.
And then I ran into cousins to the Gracie family, a guy named Carlos Machado. And one thing led to another. I fell in love with jiu-jitsu. I was already in love with the martial arts, but I really fell in love with jiu-jitsu. And I thought, wouldn't it be awesome if the thing I think about all day was how I earned a living? And I thought, well, there's a will, there's a way.
Right.
And I started trying to investigate the possibilities of going full-time teaching jiu-jitsu. And around that time, I learned that Grand Master Carlos Machado he had a school in Arlington that he was considering closing because he had his school in Dallas that was flourishing, and he needed a clone to run the Arlington location. And I said, well, I'm not your clone. However, I am looking for a place to house my dream. And one thing led to another. I took over the Arlington location, and journey to teaching full-time began. I actually started teaching in 1997 part-time.
Okay. I was going to ask you that. Yep.
Yeah, I started teaching in 1997 part-time, and in 98, I started teaching full-time. I was teaching out of a guy named Alan Moeller's school, and Alan Moeller and I used to go and do private lessons with Carlos, and then we would come back and teach.
Okay.
And then my wife, Serena, who she one day said, when are you going to open your own school? And I thought, and I told her, I remember I said, I have bigger fish to fry. And she said to me, well, your school's a pretty big fish. And that sometimes when big fish are far away, little fish that are closer look bigger. Kind of like you can hold a penny up in front of your eye and block the entire world out. When obviously the world's bigger than the penny. And then, so I said, hey, did you read that? She said, read what? I said, what you just said. And it always stuck with me because that's been a reoccurring theme, that sometimes when big fish are far away, the little fish or the busy work that's in front of us can keep us from focusing on that big fish that we're ultimately working towards.
Yeah.
And so Yeah, so that was January of 2002.
Wow.
So 23 years ago.
Yeah. 23 years this month.
Yeah, 23 years this month. The dream began.
And that was your first business to own?
Yes,
at
sir.
the time? Yeah.
That was my first business to own. And man, the entrepreneurial myth is a real thing.
Yeah.
Where you think because you have this skill set and this knowledge base,
right,
that ultimately you can transmute it into its monetary equivalent. Like you can just, you know how to be a plumber, so you can open a plumbing business. And that's, that's a myth.
So what you're indicating is it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows in the beginning of you starting your business.
Oh, no.
Right.
Opening a business helped me develop a new relationship with adversity. Because if you think the FUBAR fairies aren't going to come and sprinkle their dust on your little party and your plans, then you are sadly mistaken.
Yeah.
But I think that's what makes business ownership so worthwhile, because you really do have to get it out of the earth, man. You know, nobody's handing out anything.
Yeah.
So you have to be the early bird to get the worm.
Right.
And I think there's something really meaningful about getting up every day and knowing that victory and defeat is in your hands. When my school was brand new, this was shortly after 9/11, and I had a financial backer. Well, 3 months into the school opening, my financial backer, he's like, man, I'm losing my shirt. And if I lost $5,000 a month when this thing opened, it didn't matter. But now I'm at a point where if I lose $500 a month,
it's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so he was like, hey, 3 months in, you're sink or swim. So we were a 3-month-old business with zero operating capital. Yes.
Big gulp swallow?
Big gulp, man.
Oh, boy.
And so early on, I had some pity parties for myself. And then all of a sudden I realized that, hey, man, I'm still standing in front of infinite possibility. And just because it's not going to be easy doesn't mean that it can't be done.
Right.
And so here we are 23 years later. And so that 3 months didn't
deter the dream.
Yeah, it didn't deter the dream, didn't end it.
Yeah. And so whenever, and you didn't really allude to this though, you had met your wife in jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
On the mat. Tell me a little bit about that story.
Oh my God.
I want to hear it again.
Okay. Yes. Hilarious. So, my wife came in as a student, and I have a strict teacher-student rule.
Absolutely.
If you're my student, there's no boys and girls in self-defense. There's just students, because you don't get to say, hey, stop, I'm a girl, or stop, I'm a guy, or you're big, or whatever.
Right.
You defend yourself from who you have to defend yourself from.
Yep.
Well, at the time, my instructor was like, hey, Waugh, that young lady likes you. And I was like, man, no way. Because I was oblivious. Plus I was blinded by my love of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Long story short, I asked her if she wanted to go out. Because my instructor, he told me, he said, hey, if you ask that girl out and she says no, I'll give you $50. And then I said, well, I don't have $50 to bet with. He said, well, if she says yes, you don't have to pay me. So I was like,
it's a win-win.
Yeah. I was like, unless I'm the biggest chicken on the farm, I better go over there and ask her out. And one thing led to another. She said yes, and we've been attached at the hip ever since.
Yeah.
And probably a year or so into the school being opening, she used to be a international auditor for GE aircraft engines.
Yeah.
And then she came to work at the school.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was a big, big, big deal for our family. Like she was at GE aircraft engines, then she went to work for American Airlines, and then she came
Right.
I work at
Wow.
the school. And that came with its own set of challenges and blessings.
Sure. Yeah. And, you know, we're both in the same boat on that we both get the privilege of working with our wives.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And I see it as a privilege for sure and a blessing.
Yes, sir.
It can be challenging.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes.
You know, I definitely have learned to stay in certain lanes. And I think that really is probably the best advice I could give working with the spouse. What would you say?
I would say definitely choose your battles. Make sure that you remember that everybody has to have their lane, because too many cooks in the kitchen don't make a good soup.
Right.
You got everybody in there trying to add ingredients and remove ingredients. And so fortunately for me, my wife, her finance background allowed her to do the office and allowed me to really live my dream.
Yeah.
And do the part that I love the most, which is like moving, touching, and inspiring people, and trying to teach them the martial art.
Right.
And
it's really a perfect recipe.
Perfect recipe.
Yeah.
Or like I like to say in jiu-jitsu, the recipe.
There you go. I love it.
Yeah, the perfect recipe.
Yeah.
And so, it's been a roller coaster ride, but truly a blessed one.
Yeah.
And then inside of that, opening the school, of course, I met Nick Bahanish first many years. Well, actually, I met his instructor, Scott Doloff, and I was teaching Master Doloff Jiu-Jitsu. And I met Nick through Master Doloff, and one day we saw each other out on the hunt working like entrepreneurs need to do.
Right.
And because we were in a similar path, we both recognized that, hey, I see you out here in the hunt, you know? And then we connected and started teaching jiu-jitsu, and I taught him jiu-jitsu. He fell in love with it.
Yeah.
Then, of course, met you.
Right.
And, lo and behold, time passed, and we decided it made sense for us to all
That's right.
work together.
Join forces. That's right.
That's right. Because being on your own comes with its own sense of freedom and flexibility, but it's kind of like when you look at geese flying in a V formation. Science tells us that the lead goose who bears the brunt of the headwind creates an updraft for the geese to his right and to his left, and that they can fly 70% further together than any one goose can fly on his own. And as soon as one goose is off by himself, he feels the brunt of the headwind. He feels all of the drag. And when you've been a lone goose by yourself for a long time, you can't even truly appreciate the lifting power that your brothers would have if they were flying in the same formation with you.
Right.
And so, man, if people have as much sense as a goose, they'll stay in formation and they'll work together.
Yeah.
When geese are flying, you hear them honking, and they're honking to keep up the speed and to keep the progress going.
Yeah.
We got to think of what we do as people when we're honking from behind.
I love it.
Are we whispering encouragement? Or are we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
That goes right along with the saying that we talked about it the other day. If you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go with a team.
That's right.
I was talking to a fellow entrepreneur, matter of fact, this morning, is just having that mind shift. And so I dropped that to him, and he was like, I'm going to write this down. That was so amazing. Right. And so.
That's outstanding. That's outstanding. One of my personal quotes, like this is from my writings, but it's even the strongest bristle in the broom can't get the job done alone. You could be a strong bristle, but you're not a broom. And if you can team up with some like-minded bristles, you guys can really make a meaningful impact in the world that you live in. Yeah. Versus if you insist on being an individual bristle, I mean, nothing wrong with being a strong bristle.
Sure.
But be clear, you'd be a much stronger bristle if you're a part of a team.
Yeah. Yeah. And I found that to be true as well, too.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to talk about a lesson not too long ago that we had talked about Just the, my mindset and, get your opinion on this as well too. Business, we try to categorize, I think, life a lot, right? Let's say, 9 to 5, I got my business life. Then in the evening, I got my personal life. And then maybe on Sunday, I have my church life. And for me, it's very difficult to separate those things. They sort of blend together, in at least with me. So just the idea of, people's needs in life, if you break down life into the very essentials of what people need, right? And how that correlates with business. I'd like to talk about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that people do sometimes try to compartmentalize life and think that what's going on at home isn't going to impact their professional life and vice versa.
Yeah.
And then people get behind the wheel of their car. When they're on their way home, they're thinking about work. When they're at home, they're thinking about work. And when they're at work, they're thinking about home. And nobody really gets dialed in because they're always traveling. And so,
right.
So, So, I think that we really have to be mindful of the human needs. The Anthony Robbins did a piece on human needs a long time ago, and it was, there was certainty, uncertainty, like certainty being knowing that your needs are met, that you're going to have a roof over your head, the things that, keep a person healthy and out of the elements. And then uncertainty, we all need variety. We all need challenge, opportunity for growth and just expansion of ourselves. And a sense of community. I always think about when I see parents or big brothers or sisters, they're shooing a little brother or a little sister away because they're insisting on being part of the community. Because there's really two of them. There's community, like a sense of belonging, but there's also a need to contribute. Everybody needs to contribute. And when they shoo that little kid away, they don't realize that he's really trying to satisfy like a fundamental human need, which is to have a sense of meaning and a sense of contribution, right? And to belong to the tribe.
My mind's eye, matter of fact, just on Monday, family had come up to the front counter, and whenever I was at the academy, and little 3-4-year-old or whatever, he's like, mommy, just interacting, and she was doing the same thing. I'm trying to talk here, and yeah.
And we think, okay, he's just not using self-restraint. He's young and wild and undisciplined still. And it's like, no, actually, he's really in touch with his primitive needs. The fact that he needs to be part of the team. He needs to feel like he's contributing.
Yeah.
And once I learned that, I started at the academy when a little brother or little sister I would say, hey, can you draw me a picture of, and when they give it to me, I say, man, that's wonderful. Thank you. Can I keep this? And they always and now I have a big envelope. I mean, from like years, I have stacks of pictures. And, Professor Jackson, who a long time ago, she asked me, she said, sir, why do you keep those? And I said, that child doesn't have any money. He doesn't have access to anything but his two hands and his heart. And so when he uses his two hands and his heart and he gives you something, that was one of the most sincere gifts. Because most of the gifts you get, people buy stuff and give it to you. And they thought about you, but it wasn't as much work as this kid put into this picture.
Right.
And so, human needs. The martial arts provides us with a place where we can meet that for ourselves, but also meet it for other people.
Right.
To be challenged and tested and to grow and to be part of a community and to be needed.
Yeah. And, what I really love about that is that, being in the martial arts for quite some time now and seeing many different people walk in, man, what I love about the mat is it doesn't matter if this guy is a doctor, this guy is a teacher, if this lady is a law enforcement officer, it doesn't, if this lady's a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home dad, whatever, right? It just doesn't matter on the mat.
Yes.
And I love that community aspect about martial arts.
It unifies people.
Yeah.
It unifies people, and it gives people a common sense of belonging. But one of the things that's also so wonderful is when you get a family that trains together. I can't tell you how many times I'll have a parent come up to me and say, well, we talked about the lesson of the week on the way home, and we got to be like a stimulant or a fire starter. We got to be a catalyst for a conversation that would not have happened without us having introduced the concept. And the two of them had a shared experience. Right. And then they go home and just talk about stuff that really makes a difference for the kid and for the parent.
Yeah. 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 There's a lot of great attributes that, people can experience in the martial arts, right? A lot of it is plugged into those basic needs. And again, I guess I'm just such a bragger on the martial arts because it's changed my life, changed my family's life. But I've seen it change so many other people's lives.
Ready to boost your business's impact? Fully Promoted Fort Worth is your one-stop destination for branding needs, specializing in branded apparel and promotional products. They help attract, retain, and engage customers. From custom uniforms to eye-catching items, Fully Promoted Fort Worth has you covered. Contact them today to unlock your brand's potential. 817-803-4404. Fully Promoted, your success, their passion.
So are you a martial artist who has mastered the martial arts but could use some help in sales and marketing? TXPBA can help you.
If you're an old school martial artist like myself and you love to continue through the martial arts and grow a business in the martial arts, we look forward to working with you.
The marketing strategies that I learned before I got started really helped my business.
But it's also improved my quality of life, and others, not just in my family, but my friends have seen what martial arts has done for me.
We're really looking forward for you learning more about our proven business systems and marketing strategies.
Thank you for your interest in the TXBBA franchise family. The martial arts and the martial arts business combined both taught me a new relationship to adversity. It just reminded me of the idea that problems are really normal. Problems are normal and necessary, and they provide us with corrective feedback. Like when we no longer need the lesson that a problem teaches us, whether it's in business or in our personal life, we'll stop having that exact problem. I read a story of Earl Nightingale, and he took a trip to the Great Barrier Reef, and it spans from New Guinea to Australia. And while he was there, he asked his guide, he said, hey, he noticed that the coral polyps on the outside of the lagoon, man, they were bright and vibrant. It was like a rainbow of colors, man. Bag of Skittles assortment. It was crazy. But then on the inside of the reef where the coral polyps were protected from the surge of the tide, they were dull and lifeless. And he's like, man, why is this? And the guide told him, he said, man, the coral polyps that face the surge of the tide and the powers of the waves are tested every day. And as a result of that, they're vibrant and they're invigorated. And so it just reminds me, man, like the sole purpose of suffering really is to teach us and to purify us and to refine our approach to life. And life, man, includes personal and business. When we ain't getting along at home, we need to refine our approach. We're not getting the results we want in business. We have to really take a look at our approach and see if we can't refine it. And have enough humility to ask for guidance and help or pay for it if necessary from people who are getting the results that you want. Because many times people are like, oh man, he's lucky, he's this, he's that. It's like, no, man on top of the mountain didn't fall there. So if he didn't fall on top of that mountain, man, he might know the way to the top of Everest. And so you should recruit him like a Sherpa and help you figure out how to get to a place that you've been unable to get to.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think martial arts, especially, jiu-jitsu, in my opinion, will really expose that quickly. Right. Where you could start a business, and if you're not very good at living through adversity, right, it may take a little bit, and man, the results of that could be very devastating. Right. Where in martial arts, it's like, I remember my first class. My first class. I was a lot younger back then, but I could bench press 300 pounds. I was really strong. Yeah, I would lift 4 days a week, and so I'm like, man, I'm gonna just jiu-jitsu stuff. Yeah, so I got in there with Master Pahanish, and 45 seconds into it, I'm like tapping out really quick, like, what is this? Right?
Yes.
And the other day I shared my experience with rolling with you for the first time, a few years later. And I was like, man, this guy, he's just a big old teddy bear, and sort of rolled with that in the beginning. And like 20, 30 seconds in, it's like, felt like a pancake. I was just crushed. Yeah. So you can find that adversity really, really quick in the martial arts. And what I love about it is that if you find the right academy, it's a very safe environment to learn in.
That's right.
And that's what I love about the culture that you and Master Panish, had started early on the beginning, was that culture.
Yes, sir.
And I think that's really what drew me to y'all, was that culture. Yeah.
You know what's interesting about our culture? We frequently say it's not about beating people up. It's about building people up. There really is no value in being better than someone unless you're committed to helping them. Because just being better just for the sake of saying you're better, you might as well keep that to yourself.
Right.
But if you're sharing your knowledge, then it's noble to be better and to try to help people get up to where you are, or maybe even your senior if they have the capability.
Right.
And so many people go through life with a inferiority complex. Maybe they don't have the level of education that they think they should have, or they don't have the amount of money that they think they should have, or they don't have the girl or the whatever or the car. But jiu-jitsu, I've seen it transform people, man. You can see it in their eyes. They came in feeling less than, and gradually you see a poodle turn into a pit bull. But he's a well-mannered pit bull because he realizes that there might be a kangaroo hanging around in the background, Yeah, so there's always a bigger fish.
Right.
And so,
right.
Yeah, it really does teach humility and relationship to adversity, and reveals the byproduct of consistent hard work. And if you have the right people surrounding you in business, you can have a similar experience.
Yeah.
Now, you won't have to tap out as much physically, but there may be a couple lessons that you learn that cause you to tap out, I don't know, financially.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, just I really do contribute a lot of the, I guess, the way that I handle adversity and the different things that, go on in our lives, right? I really contribute a lot of that to my martial arts journey, right? I really do. I learned so much going up through the belt ranks. It's like, man, it's crazy because I almost remember some of the grappling rolls that I was doing, that I learned how much pressure I could take, right? And yeah, it was physical pressure because this guy was 280 pounds and just crushing me like crazy. And I was squished up underneath and couldn't hardly breathe and trying to get out. And actually going home one day to Selena and saying, you know what, I want to quit. The only time I ever wanted to quit martial arts was that day. And she was like, you wouldn't be happy with yourself if you did. And she said, I think you need to sleep on it. And I did, and went back and just, did that guy crush me some more? Sure. But I made it a focus point to say, you know what, I don't want this guy crushing me no more. And so I got better, and then it flipped the tides pretty quick.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So two things. When I hear about your journey getting crushed and improving, they say that necessity is the mother of invention. Many times that defeat introduces you to a need to find a solution that you wouldn't have found without the need to find it.
I believe that.
And then the other thing that it's a hidden benefit of the martial arts, like, because when you hear people talking about jiu-jitsu, you're like, 280 pounds, he crushed me, smashed me, my guts came out like a fish on the rocks. And you're like, listening to this from the house, you're going, who wants any of that? You paid money for that? But the hidden benefit of it is that when you expose yourself to real adversity, physical adversity, and you suffer, then during your regular day, some of the stuff that you might turn into, like, you might turn a little molehill into a mountain and make it sound like it's like the real deal. You're like, it's nothing. Road rage. When I started jiu-jitsu, road rage disappeared for me because I understood the difference between really being in conflict with someone.
Yeah.
And just like a momentary delay in your journey where you just have to hit the brake that's installed in your car for slowing down.
It made a device for this.
This is a device. It has to happen so regularly that there's a device in there just for that.
Or if you have a Tesla, you just take your foot off the gas.
Foot off the gas and it brakes for you, right? And so, I think that's a hidden benefit because many times people, because they haven't faced any real adversity, they turn faux adversity into like the real deal.
Yeah.
But if like you say, you've been underneath a 180-pound guy who's trying to smash you, then all of a sudden you go to work and someone's like says something smart aleck. You don't confuse that with like the real deal. You're like, yeah.
Yeah. True story.
Yeah. So
true story. Yeah. Well, how, going back to the business and the basic needs, right? How do you think you have, the martial arts really answers those basic needs?
So, variety. I mean, you're going to constantly be challenged and tested. And as soon as you reach a certain level of understanding, then that allows you access to a new body of information that you now have to master. It's just like in our business. You're like, okay, I want this business to net me $3,000 a month so I cover my expenses.
Right.
Then you're like, oh man, now wouldn't it be great if it made $6,000 a month so I covered my expenses plus enough to pay for a few things. The next thing you know, you're like $10,000 a month.
Yeah.
And the martial arts provides you with that opportunity to grow and continue to expand your possibilities. And so I think that satisfies the variety, the uncertainty.
Yep.
Because we've all had the experience of a new technique that's challenging for us to learn.
Oh, yeah.
And in business, we've all had to try to implement something new that we didn't used to do.
Yeah. Yeah, things have changed.
Right.
There ain't no doubt about it.
Man, listen, man, it wasn't so digital when we started.
Yeah.
In 96.
Thus the story of you and Nick meeting, going out passing flyers.
Yeah, man.
Right?
Man.
Guerrilla marketing.
Yeah. And then sense of community.
Oh, definitely. Right.
Sense of community.
Yeah.
It's just like you belong. If you find the right academy, because some academies can be very cliquish, and only the top dogs like to hang out together and be top dog like and gaze down condescendingly on the low ranks.
Right.
But in a good academy, the high ranks realize that they were once low ranks, and their sole responsibility is to pay forward what was done for them.
Right.
for them to bring someone else up along.
Yep.
And
I love seeing that too. I love seeing, matter of fact, on Monday night, had a couple brand new people come in, never trained before, and purple belt, blue belt, went right over to him. He's like, "Hey, I want to be your big brother today. You come over here with me."
That's right.
Yeah.
And took them under their wing, make them feel at home.
Yep.
And encourage them as they take on the journey, because they know what it's like to have been there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, I think that there are very few things that parallel life the way the martial arts does.
Yeah.
And it's both a team, it's a community, but it's also an individual journey.
Right.
Because I always tell my students, I say, hey, listen, your best belongs to you. That's why it's called your best. I can't do your best for you. But what I can is do my best. And if we do our best together, then we'll create something meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like the teacher's job is to teach, it's the student's job to learn. Everybody has to do their job for this thing to work.
Right.
And I can't think of a better business to have been in. Yeah. I tell my students that it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing to love what you do.
Yeah.
And not dread showing up.
Oh yeah.
Not dread showing up.
Yep.
Because I know people get paid in a couple of ways. They get paid in satisfaction and they get paid in compensation. And I know people who have a high level of compensation. They make a lot of money, but they don't love what they do.
Yeah.
And then I know people who love what they do, but they don't make a lot of money doing it.
Right.
So if you can find a business that you both love and that it allows you to take care of yourself and your family and your needs without violating the rights of others, jackpot.
And if you can find that actually adds value to people's lives builds up people to make a better society, and man,
jackpot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Winner.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, yeah. Fantastic. Here's a thought that I just had earlier and came back to my brain here. So we were talking about the higher ranks coming in and, taking the newer students underneath their wings versus, some of the elites, sort of, being cliquish and stuff. For those that are interested in martial arts, right? What should they look for to find a good academy, a good, healthy academy that would have a good culture? Just from a snapshot walking in, 30 minutes, an hour, however long they spend there. What are some things that they could sort of feel and make sure they're in the right spot?
So one of the things that I recommend is, first off, man, smell. Like all of our schools smell good. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that for any reason other than if you walk into a school and it stinks, then there's some cleaning duties that have been neglected. And that has all kind of repercussions. Staff, ringworm. You don't want to be in some stinky, funky dungeon dojo rolling around on the floor, taking a bunch of lives and parasites home with you that you didn't bring with you.
It's a true story.
True story. It's real.
It's real.
It's real. Yeah. So if you walk into the place and it smells good, man, star number one. One of the things I also advocate, if you go into a place and there's like trophies all over the wall and belts and all that, if you're looking for that, then great. But if you're looking for a place for you to grow and gain your confidence and for someone to be heavily invested in your development as a human being, I think that's a strike against a place because it's so easy to get so absorbed with competition. My experience is because I used to have a heavy competition school.
Oh yeah. Like
my guys that came up, I told them, I said, hey, when we show up at a tournament, I want everyone to wonder who's going to get second. Because they already know we're going to get first. So I want them to fight for second. But the problem is it's almost impossible to not have a cliquish school with a super heavy competition focus, because all people are dissimilar in skill level and athletic ability.
Sure.
And you're going to have a handful of guys who would have excelled at any sport. They just happened to choose your martial art.
Right.
And then everybody else is going to be either kind of regular or slightly below regular.
Right.
And so our goal, a good school, the focus should be where the weak become strong and the strong become formidable, right? And not only the strong survive. If you go somewhere it's only the strong survive,
Yeah.
I mean, that works as long as you're the strong. But,
True.
But if you're there trying to get strong,
Yeah.
you may not survive to get strong, right?
Yeah.
And then instructors, man, friendly greeting, prompt greeting.
Right.
People that look you in the eye and they're happy that you're there. Because I've met some guys that are tough, but they walk up to you. They're like, I'm Professor No Funsky. I'm undefeated in the cage, and it's a pleasure for you to meet me. You know, it's like, oh, gross. This guy, he doesn't care anything about your development. I've met guys who are very tough, but they can't teach another person how to fight their way out of a wet paper sack.
Yeah.
Because the focus has to be on the student.
Yeah.
And so if you go in a place, it doesn't smell good. It looks like all they care about is who won what. And your instructor there has a big ego. He doesn't have a servant's heart. You don't feel like he's there to serve.
Yeah.
That would be it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's good, you know, and I've, like you, huge advocate of martial arts. I think if you're anybody, if you're able to, then I think you should train. Right. It's like, you know, the whole adage that, you know, it's like car insurance. You hope you never need it. Right. Sorry. I'm a little close. Yeah. He had a car wreck.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah. But
I'm glad it worked out though. You know, the fact that you're here with us.
It's working out. It's working out.
Hey,
Could be worse.
Yeah. It could have been worse. That's right.
Yeah. But but if you ever need it, you're going to be thankful that you have it.
That's right. You live with less anxiety. As a younger man, I misstepped and allowed my insurance to lapse. And I promise you, I was driving. Please, no one bump into me. Please don't stop me. No. I mean, there's a level of anxiety knowing that you're not prepared.
Right.
And so to me, it's almost like in business when we became part of the TXBBA family, there are benefits that you don't know are there because you've not experienced them.
Right.
You know, it's it's like, so you kind of have to get out of your comfort zone and try something different than what you've been doing if you want to get a result different than what you've been getting.
Right.
And some people just think that the results they're getting is all there are.
Yeah.
And it's just not true in life. It's not true in business. And so being open-minded and constantly examining our approach to things, I think is critical.
Yeah. One of the things in business that everybody always tries to preach and is to be indifferent from other people, right?
Yes.
It's like, for instance, like martial arts, right? One academy, you know, they're going to teach an arm bar. Your academy, you may teach an arm bar, right? Another academy, well, they're going to teach an arm bar, right? So what do you think the differentiator is with the TXBBA brand?
I think it's more family focused.
Yeah.
And it's more about adding value to lives. Really, like that's our line, man, but it's more than just a line. It's like he who would be the greatest among you will be the servant of all. And if you are not serving the people that you come in contact, if you're not making them better than they were before they came in contact with you, then you're not adding value. Because I think of these competition-based school, and I'm not trying to, because I did a lot of competition and I've had a lot of competitors come out of my gym. Yeah. My instructor is a renowned competitor.
Yeah, I did some too.
Yeah.
Cage fighting and all the jiu-jitsu tournaments.
Yeah, I jumped in there.
Yep.
And you're a good enough athlete that stuff went well.
Sure.
But the thing that gets overlooked, I think, in the martial arts community is the goal is not to service the 10 guys who would have excelled in any sport.
Right.
Because the truth is, those are the guys who least needed what you have to offer.
Makes sense. Yep.
Those guys, I mean,
right.
Sure, they got a lot out of your knowledge and your contribution to them, but they, I mean, like you're benching 300 pounds.
Right.
You could defend yourself fine.
Yeah. Well, until someone,
Yeah. Now, good is relative. Now, good is relative. You know, it's like you can defend yourself fine until you run into somebody who really knows how to, get down a little bit. But
true.
I think the kid who's scared of his own shadow, who's been bullied, or the woman who's been intimidated and emotionally abused, and the man, like I had a guy come to my school many years ago, and I was like, hey, if you don't mind me asking, what do you hope to accomplish with your training? And he told me self-defense and flexibility and all of these things. Yeah. But only after I'd known him for a while and he came to trust me did he tell me that somebody had poured a beer on his head at a local, well, like, I don't want to say the name of the place.
Yeah.
But a local establishment, and he realized in that moment that he had never been in a fight in his life. And he really had no sense of really how to handle himself in a physical confrontation.
Sure.
And his confidence and self-image took a tremendous hit, and he went into a depression behind that.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
But then he started training.
Yeah.
And you saw his swag reemerge, you saw it in his eyes that he realized he wasn't the biggest dog in the yard, but he also wasn't a puppy on the porch anymore. So he's like, yeah, I can run with the big dogs. I might not be the lead, but
sure,
I can hold my own.
Yeah.
And I think there really is something to be said about that. I don't know if you remember that old movie, Back to the Future.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So Back to the Future, McFly, Biff, when he's a kid, Biff slaps him around. McFly, you're so gullible, just torments the guy.
Yeah.
And as they get to the future, Biff's like still bullying him. And then Michael J. Fox goes back in time and teaches his dad to stand up for him. Then he comes back. Now his dad's like dressed in cool threads and Biff is working for him. And that, while that's a movie, it's a real occurrence.
Yeah.
It's a real occurrence. People have a pivotal moment in their life. And if they're not careful to really analyze it and work through the emotional content that shows up as a result of it,
right,
then they can carry it their whole life.
Yeah.
And it'll shape who they are. And not just for themselves, but for everybody else who they do life with.
Yeah. It reminds me of the elephant in the string.
That's right. Yeah. The elephant in the string. The guy's like, how is this elephant? So, yeah, the story is circus comes to town and a guy is walking through the circus looking at all the animals, and he comes to the elephant who has this little string on his ankle. And he's like, okay, what kind of string is this? Is this steel cable? No, that's regular string. So he couldn't take it anymore. So he asked the ringmaster, he said, how do you keep that elephant on a string? It looks like if he sneezes, he's going to break it and run on a rampage. And the guy said it's been on him since he was very young. When he was young, he wasn't strong enough to break it. And he struggled with it until he accepted that he couldn't break it. Now he could break it at any moment, but he's subscribed to limiting beliefs from his past.
Yeah.
And it's limiting his possibilities in the present.
Right.
And so, yeah, man, I tell you.
Powerful lesson. Powerful lesson.
How many of us are elephants with the string on our leg based on, a preconceived idea from the past?
Right. Yeah. Well, shoot, man, we're getting close to the end of our time.
Yes, sir.
And it's been great. We could talk forever.
Yeah, we could chop it up. The lights will be off, and we'll order some foe sitting here, right? But
yeah,
I think that a person who is in business for themselves and has to constantly evaluate their approach, and have to also be willing to consider the possibility that if things aren't going the way they want it to go, that there's something that they need to acquire education-wise,
right.
technology-wise. They need to be willing to pivot, because if you won't pivot and you won't change, then
You may not have a business.
you won't have a business. Yeah, they say decay is the default setting.
Yeah.
So like if you do nothing, it's just going to get worse.
Right. Just slow death is what that is.
That's right. Yep. And so,
Man,
yeah.
that's great. Well, again, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me. It was a real honor and a privilege. I enjoyed the conversation as always.
Yeah, definitely. So hopefully, we'll be able to get to do this again soon and go from there. So
Outstanding.
cool.
All right.
Well, hey, thank y'all so much for watching this episode of the Biz Life. Really appreciate y'all. Please like, subscribe, share out. It does help apparently the algorithm or whatever that is that just gets people to know about the channel. So thank y'all so much. Y'all have a great day.